in the very last sentence of his final report for volume one of the final report that had to do with the January 6th election interference case, Jack Smith and his office writes, "Indeed, but for Mr. Trump's election and imminent return to the presidency, the office assessed that the admissible evidence was sufficient to obtain and sustain a conviction at trial." Welcome to Law and Society. Please subscribe and let's talk about the final report that was just released. So, the Department of Justice, at least at the very end, promptly releases the final report, volume one, that discusses the election interference case that was being prosecuted in D.C. until Donald Trump won the election, and then DOJ moved for dismissal and the case was dismissed. Now, we all know what happened in the facts of the case. So what Jack Smith does is first goes over the facts of the case of what Donald Trump tried to do by, blackmailing state election officials, by calling these state election officials, gathering fake electors, pressuring Mike Pence, pushing lies that he deceitfully knew were lies. And that's a big portion of meat and weight of the indictment comes from Donald Trump's deceitful words and actions, and used deceit to set several conspiracies into motion. And I'm not going to go over the facts of the case, because we have heard the facts of the case of what Donald Trump did over and over again, all the way from blackmailing election officials to the January 6th rally, to the 3 hours Donald Trump took before he told his foot soldiers to leave the Capitol. In that time, he also sent out tweets saying that Mike Pence wasn't going to help him, which caused Mike Pence to have to evacuate for threat of safety for him and his family. And then, so we see in this report, Jack Smith lays out these facts, and then also the charges which he chose, which was conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, obstruction of an official proceeding, and conspiracy to deprive rights. So, and then explains how each of these statutes fit in the factual framework as well as the historical framework of using the charge of conspiracy to deprive rights, how that has historically been used to make sure that citizens are not deprived of their right to vote. And Jack Smith also describes why his office chose not to use the Insurrection statute, which is 18 U.S.C. 2383. And I found that reasoning to be somewhat shaky, but I believe that they did it to be conservative and to have charges that they thought that they could successfully prosecute. And they thought that because 2383 was such a dormant statute and it had not been used for over 100 years, that using that would be risky prosecutorially. I don't agree with that decision, but it is what it is. And then it talked about the challenges presented by making the decision to prosecute somebody who was running for president, having to deal with the candidacy and having to make assurances to make sure that this prosecution was not in any way shaped by anything other than the facts. And then there was the issue of the immunity, and Jack Smith makes this point more than once, how he had to make a superseding indictment, and this was the second time a grand jury returned with indictments on all four charges after the Supreme Court's immunity decision. So then it concludes by saying that if Donald Trump had not won the election, the evidence that was gathered would have sustained a conviction. Now, I would recommend, and I'm going to provide you with the link to download a copy of this historical document. And the only value that this document has for us is that it stands as a document of record for everybody who can download and everybody who can read it, that this happened. And this is the final report by the Department of Justice Special Counsel about Donald Trump's election interference case in DC, of what Donald Trump did, what the prosecutorial decisions were, what the challenges were, and what the outcome would have been had Donald Trump not won the election, and had there not been a long-standing constitutional and departmental policy that sitting presidents couldn't be prosecuted. So with that said, I urge you to download the document. I urge you to browse through it. A lot of it, if you've already read the previous documents, will be repetitive, but it is important to download and keep as a record for history. With that said, thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.